biology, biochemistry, and electromagnetism and have had detailed explanations for the structure of the brain and functions of different components. It can be said that humans are still in their infancy in terms of understanding the brain. Our knowledge of the brain is comparable to the part of an iceberg above the water, and what remains unknown can be likened to the gigantic mass underwater. Like the mystery of the universe, the mystery of the human brain is a non-repeating infinite circumference ratio. Although we know that the brain consists of 10 billion brain cells and 10 trillion interacting nerves, that the nerve network of the brain is 10 miles long and can process a billion units of information per second, and that the memory capacity of the brain is 1.2 million times that of a large-scale computer, the brain, which accounts for 3% of body weight, still has unlimited contents. The brain is the epitome of the universe, and the laws of the brain match the laws of the universe. The brain is the epitome of the greatest creator's wisdom, and the brain contains all the wisdom of the greatest creator. The brain is the epitome of time, and the brain owns the information on the changes of the universe over several billions of years. The brain is a processing factory, which can create things out of nothing and can transform the universe. What is imaginable in the brain can all turn to reality. The brain's potential is unlimited, therefore, humans' future is also unlimited, as long as humans do not go to extremes but stay in line with the greatest creator. The brain is a mysterious place. Each neuron of the brain is not in direct contact with each other. The information between neurons is transferred by neurotransmitters, which are chemical in nature. However, within the neurons, the transmission of information is through electrical impulses. When we open up a cranium, we can only see things in biological terms. We cannot help but ask, where is memory stored? Where are thoughts stored? How does man's thought come into being? Where is man's memory stored? How does the brain process a large amount of complicated information? Why can man make spacecraft and land on the moon, while a donkey cannot even make a small cart to carry fodder? Don't people say that all creatures are in the process of evolution? The brain is not only capable of imagery thinking, but also abstract thinking. It can not only learn, but also practice. It can associate closely with not only the material world, but also the non-material world. Most of the scenes in our dreams are not necessarily the real image of the contemporary time-space, but may be scenes from the past, or even future time-space, or even the real image of another time-space. How does the brain work its way out? How do our emotions such as joy, anger, sadness, merriment, panic, trepidation, and yearning occur? How does the brain distinguish and correctly process them? How do we instantly recognize the tastes of sourness, sweetness, bitterness, spiciness, and saltiness? How does the brain react to them? We have senses of pain, itching, tingling, soreness, swelling, acerbity, slipperiness, jumping, hardness, softness, coldness, heat, coolness, and warmth. How does the brain recognize these senses and pass on the information to related departments? The love between a man and a woman is intoxicating. We are in ecstasy when sexual excitement reaches its climax. How does the brain perceive and respond to these sensations? How could the brain come into being if it were not the careful design of the greatest creator? Could such a fantastic and intricate structure arise naturally? Could it have evolved from a single-celled microorganism? 18. 基因，生命的天书. 18 Gene, a sealed book of life. Genes are a type of structure and the cornerstone of life. It is the general term for the special nucleotide sequences with genetic effects in DNA molecules. The resemblance of children to their parents is caused by the reproductive function of genes, which pass on genetic information to the next generation. The different gene structures account for why the white race is white, the black race is black, the yellow race is yellow, a dog is a dog, and a rose is a rose. Genes are a part of DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, which is a molecular chain composed of phosphate and sugar. It forms a double helix structure, consisting of two intertwined helical molecular strands connected by horizontal bars called nucleotides. Genes only account for 2% to 4% of the entire DNA mass. Scientific studies have shown that there are about 30,000 human genes, with each gene possessing an average of 14 different versions. The human genome contains about 42,000 gene versions. The birth, growth, decline, and death of life are regulated by genes. Over 8,000 known human diseases are related to genes. The natural healing of wounds in animals and plants is the result of genes' endeavor to retain their own perfect structures. Scientific exploration and research have shown that there are 100 trillion cells in the human body, and in each cell, there are 23 pairs of chromosomes, and in each chromosome, there are 3 billion base pairs. If all the chromosomes in the human body are linked head to tail, the total length will be more than 600 times the distance between the Earth and the Sun. If all the information of a chromosome is written down, it will fill up a 200,000-page phone book. The difference of chromosomes between individuals is only 0.1%. The comparison of the gene sequences of any two individuals reveals that 99.9% of the gene sequences are the same. The functions of the majority, 97%, of chromosomes within human genomes remain a mystery. Genes, the Book of Life, have been the focus of the Human Genome Project, which mobilized top scientific talents and cutting-edge technologies from the United States, the United Kingdom, Japan, Germany, France, and China to decode them. After more than a decade of hard work, we finally see the basic framework of the mansion of life, the gene. However, it seems that we have only understood. Do we not consider that the gene is the fruit of the wisdom of the greatest creator? Can such an intricate structure come into being without the greatest creator? Some people may stick to their theory of natural occurrence, but then I ask you, what does natural occurrence even mean? 19. The wonder of the great variety of life. 19千姿百态的生命奇观. Exhibiting its fantastic luster, life of myriad forms is presented everywhere, from the tropic zone, temperate zones, frigid zones to the north and south poles, from plains and canyons to precipitous cliffs, from the underground, the Earth's surface, to the sky, from small creeks and ponds to rivers, lakes, and oceans. With their insignificant sizes but astronomical numbers, bacteria, actinomycete, epiphyte, microzyme, lactobacillus, viruses, and other microorganisms present a dazzling world of life under the microscope. A million species of insects are exhibiting a gorgeous and bizarre world of life. More than 9,000 species of birds are flying in the sky. They are agile and flexible, bearing valiant and varying beautiful shapes that have inspired us to yearn for freedom and the future, causing our thoughts to soar to the distant horizon. Countless fishes, shrimps, shell creatures, and other marine animals have constituted a fantastic and unimaginable underwater kingdom of life. We marvel at and are amazed and puzzled by hundreds of thousands of large, terrestrial animal species with widely differing means. Rushing or leaping, running or climbing, they exhibit their strong and vigorous bearing and their respective skills for survival. With the change of seasons, more than 100,000 species of flowers vie with beautiful girls in their riotous profusion of colors, enchanting and attractive. They are a sight to behold, leaving one reluctant to part ways and longing to return. From the creepy lichens to the tall and straight redwoods, from the float grass swaying in the wind to the meandering kudzu vines, from medlar to loquat, from mulberry and elm to coconut. The magical forms of the vegetable kingdom are so wonderful that they excel the work of nature. We cannot help asking, how do the riotous profusion of wonders of life come into being? Without tissues, organs, brains, and hearts, how can those single-celled monads capture and digest food, excrete feces, move freely, build houses, and have sex? Who has equipped insects with armors? Who has armed the birds with wings? Who has covered the beautiful clothes for flowers? Who has equipped man with the heart? Who else but the greatest creator? 20. The protection mechanism of life, conditioned reflex. 20. 生命的保护机制，条件反射. What is a conditioned reflex? It was a rainy autumn day in 1980. I was looking out of a closed window of a classroom in the Geological Technical School of Zhangjiago when suddenly a classmate named Chung Hongfu from Sichuan mischievously spat at me from outside the window. Subconsciously, I stepped backward, closing both eyes instantly. This chain of reactions triggered the burst of laughter of Chung Hongfu, who said jestingly, "Monitor, what a coward you are! The window is closed. How can I spit on your face?" I said, I did not realize that the window was closed. Do it one more time, and I will not react. I moved closer to the window, thinking that since the window was closed and he could not reach me, I would remain calm even if he spat blood at me. Are you ready? Before he had finished speaking, he spat at me again. Ha ha, monitor. You closed your eyes again. My eyes indeed closed at that moment. Later, I tried a few more times, but my eyes would not listen to my command. Every time he spat, I involuntarily winked my eyes. Later, in the classes of physiology and psychology, I came to know that this involuntary physiological reaction is called a conditioned reflex. Pavlov even conducted an experiment on dogs. The feeding of dogs was always accompanied by the ringing of bells. After some time, the dogs' mouths watered when they heard the bells, even before the food was brought in front of them. Why did this happen? It is because the ringing of bells has become a signal for food for dogs and a conditioned stimulus. The dog's prompt physiological and psychological reaction to this stimulus is called a conditioned reflex. In the chapter Drinking Wine and Rating the Heroes of the novel Romance of Three Kingdoms, Cao Cao related a story to Liu Bei. The green plums on the branch I saw just now in the garden remind me of last year's fight against Zhang Xiu. We were running short of water through the long march then. The army could not put up with the thirst. Suddenly an idea came to me. There is a plum grove ahead. I cried and pointed with my riding whip. Having heard this and thinking of the sour green fruits, their mouths watered, and they did not feel thirsty anymore. Because of the conditioned reflex, the troops of Cao Cao secreted saliva when hearing plums. There are endless examples of conditioned reflex. Poke a crawling caterpillar with your hand or a stick, and it will immediately curl up into a circle. The abnormal behaviors of animals prior to an earthquake. Mimosa's curling of leaves when touched. The palpitation of the heart induced by a sudden sound on a quiet night. The contraction of muscles at the sight of a snake. The sneezes caused by the entrance of specks. The erection of the penis and the secretion of lubricating mucus in the vagina when watching pornographic videos. The tightening of muscles and the flush of the face at the thought of one's enemy. The trembling of the mouth and the shivering of the body in times of fear and tension. The spontaneous resistance when encountering sudden attack. Inexplicable twitching of the eyelids, flush of ears, palpitation, and twittering of muscles. All these are results of a conditioned reflex. Why are there conditioned reflexes in animals and plants? Whether we explain it from a psychological or physiological perspective, apart from the conditioned reflex acquired as second nature, the innate instinctive conditioned reflex cannot be created by the plants and animals themselves. Conditioned reflex primarily serves as a mechanism for life's instinct self-protection and is an instant response at one's subconscious level. Who designed this? Who but the greatest creator? 21两性愉悦不仅仅是为了传宗接代。21. The pleasure of sex is not only for carrying on the family line. The core point of the pleasure in sex is the orgasm during sexual intercourse. None of the first love, adoration, yearning, dating, caressing, and other emotional enjoyments can compare to the orgasm in sex. Then, what is the orgasm in sexual intercourse? To help us understand the feeling of orgasm between males and females, I have selected some sections from Kinsey Reports, Hattie Report on Sex, and especially Sex Codes, China Reports. I feel like I'm in heaven. I have a blurry sense of giddiness, the thrilling and exciting warmth, fullness, humidness, and force. A sense of urgency, an irresistible sense of pulling. I feel extremely excited and short of breath. Meanwhile, I feel my head lifting up as if in a dream. The sound is vague and distant. Time seems still. Joy, happiness, exhilaration, and excitement. I am blissfully ecstatic. I feel terrific, as if I am at my best. It feels like an awakening and the beginning of life. The feeling is incomparably wonderful. It is an ecstasy almost unbearable to human power. Charming, surging blood, carefree, ecstasy, orgasm, unparalleled wonder, intoxicating, full of power, incredible. In some aspects, arousal of sexuality offers me the opportunity to transcend myself and wake up from the dense fog of daily life and existence. I feel as if I have left my flesh and my spirit, caring for nothing that normally seems extremely important to me. Wonderful feeling of caresses. I wish this could go on forever. The stillness of life is like an eternal moment, intertwined strongly through indulging and savoring the sweet pleasure of the flesh. A fantastic sensation. I myself am in another dimension which drifts and melts from the supporting point of my life. A raging flame, violent and engulfing everything. Extremely fantastic. A refreshing and irresistible orgasm is increasing to such an extent that an intense charge surges around the clitoris, just like a space-exploring rocket shooting up explosively. Then the charge radiates in the entire region of my pubes. At this moment, all other things have vanished from my consciousness. It seems that the inside of me is filled with enormous power. The wetness, the heat, and the intensity make me feel incomparably comfortable. During the whole process, all the raging, wonderful feelings are radiating on the internal side of my legs. It seems that all things around me have ceased their existence. I am completely immersed in this wonderful feeling. By far, I have not experienced a more wonderful feeling than this. This feeling is a complete immersion that has nothing to do with will and thought. It has completely conquered me, occupying my body. As for the overall effect of its destructiveness, the best word to describe this physiological feeling is madly carefree. The only feeling I can relate to is a certain form of overall stiffness and tightness and the indistinguishable internal explosion at the sexual organs. My body gradually tightens up. I feel as if I have reached the precipitous peak of perfect happiness. Then I approach the plateau of ecstasy. I utter a sharp scream, glide past the crest plane of bliss. Then I experience 5 or 6 fits of violent twitches and convulsions, which are acute, vehement, and agitating in the beginning and become duller, slower, and milder. This is the orgasm and sexual pleasure. From the above statement, we can see that the physiological and psychological sensations during orgasm are incomparably wonderful pleasures and the ultimate beauty. No wonder Bangu said in the Book of Han, Arts and Literature, sexual intercourse is the ultimate expression of emotion and nature, the boundary of Tao. Jared Diamond, a physiology professor at the University of California, Los Angeles, said, "Human sex is weird. It is magical, incredible, and beyond nature. The pleasure between two sexes is so magical, so soul-stirring, so desirable. No wonder Freud concluded that the driving force of sex is the greatest force that propels social development. Then, who created such a wonderful feeling for humankind? Is sexual orgasm a result of natural evolution? Is sexual pleasure solely for the purpose of reproducing?" R. Stephen Howard, a graduate student at Indiana State University, said, "In terms of energy required, asexual reproduction is a more economical way to transmit genes to one's progeny." His research results showed that asexual reproduction is the most economical way and the most effective way to transmit the genetic traits of a living organism to its offspring. But how did sexual reproduction come into being? Is sexual pleasure only for bearing children? The answer is no. Prostitutes engage in prostitution not to bear children for pleasure-seeking men, and those men do not seek out prostitutes to have children with them. Human intelligence can create a master machine that produces products continuously. So, why couldn't the greatest creator make a matrix that continually produces offspring? The pleasure of sex is purely for the enjoyment of life, and this is the universal love of the greatest creator. As for the propagation of offspring, it is only a byproduct of the pleasure of sex. Moreover, asexual reproduction will pass on diseases carried by genes to future generations. Through copulation, diseases carried by genes can be remitted or even eliminated. The benefits of crossbreeding are evident. Therefore, a species may go extinct without a sex life. Thus, the pleasure of sex is an arrangement of the greatest creator. Sex life conforms to the decree of the greatest creator. Suppressing, inhibiting, or destroying sex life is against human nature. We should have sex life and enjoy it too. Sex life should accompany us to the other shore of life. It is unreasonable to suppress, inhibit, or destroy sex life because it goes against human nature. Why should we refrain from what the greatest creator has created? There is no such thing as debauchery and dissipation in sex life. The more, the better. There is nothing wrong with the Muzi-May phenomenon. If Lin Dayu in A Dream of Red Mansion had experienced an orgasm, she would not have had such a miserable ending. Does this mean that Life Genuine is against Christianity and Buddhism? The seventh precept of the Ten Commandments is, "You shall not commit adultery." In Matthew 5 verses 28 to 29, Jesus said, "But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into Gehenna." Gehenna, a garbage dump outside of Jerusalem. The first precept of upholding the right Dharma in Volume 6 of the Buddhist Shurangama Sutra is to abstain from sexual misconduct. If the minds of all sentient beings in the 6 realms of the world are not tainted by sexual desire, they will not be subject to birth and death. If you cultivate samadhi without removing the desire, you cannot transcend worldly sufferings. Even if you have great wisdom and meditation, if you do not refrain from sexual misconduct, you will fall into the demonic path. There are high-ranking demon kings, middle-ranking demon followers, and low-ranking demon women. These demons also have their own followers, and each one claims to have achieved the heavenly path. In the Dharma ending age after my nirvana, these demonic followers will be prevalent in the world, widely promoting greed and sexual misconduct as virtuous conduct, causing sentient beings to fall into the pit of attachment and lose the path to enlightenment. Jesus is God, and Sakyamuni is Buddha. Their profound wisdom is beyond us mortals, and their teachings are invaluable treasures to our life. Jesus instructs us in divinity. Following the supreme road of life guided by Jesus, we can enter the kingdom of the greatest creator. Sakyamuni enlightens us from the perspective of Buddhism. If we want to attain Buddhahood, we must break with lewdness, not only physiologically but also psychologically. Just like the teachings of Jesus, you have already committed adultery even if you only have harbored the lustful desire. Christianity is the religion of God, and Buddhism is the religion of Buddha. The two religions have made indelible contributions to mankind. Through them, we have come to know the road to supreme life space. It is the primary task of Life Genuine to make Jesus and Sakyamuni an integrated part of our life. If the path of human development is comparable to a 3-story building, then Christianity will be on the top level, Buddhism at the middle, and Life Genuine will be at the bottom. From the perspective of the level of life, Buddhism is a direct ship that leads people to the Western Pure Land, the Elysium world in the 36-dimensional spaces, by crossing over human nature. To board this ship, one must cut off lust. Where exactly Christianity wants to guide people in terms of the level of life space, I cannot fully comprehend with my current knowledge. Based on the miracles and teachings of Jesus, it seems that the goal is to make everyone an angel and enter the heaven world, God's paradise. In 12:18-25 of the Gospel of Mark, Jesus said, "For when they rise from the dead, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels in heaven." What is an angel? An angel is the super-celestial being and Buddha with divinity. Buddha is under the control of the power of Buddha, while a super-celestial being is the free, elegant, and magically powerful spiritual entity of high energy, second only to God. Christianity guides people to develop in the direction of super-celestial being, which conforms to Jesus' teachings. Only in this way can they have a definite development direction for life space. However, from the activities and pursuits of Christians, it seems that they are still clinging to worldly affairs, to the relations of parents, children, couples, and friends and relatives, and to private properties, which is unreasonable. In Luke 14 verse 26, Jesus said, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Because if you don't hate them, you cannot become an angel." For angels, there is nothing like family love. We can see from the teachings of Jesus and Sakyamuni that the ultimate wisdoms are communicable. They have the same purpose. Buddhists are capable of determinately cutting off all their attachments to worldly affairs, including the relations of father, mother, wife, children, brothers, sisters, belongings, status, reputation, and their own souls. They will commit themselves to self-improvement and self-cultivation wholeheartedly. They are the real Christians. However, the so-called Christians may inspire suspicion of crying up wine but selling vinegar. The direction of development for us, mankind, is the direction given by Jesus and Sakyamuni. The problem is that there is a vast ocean between humans and angels, super celestial beings and Buddhas. And how can we navigate our lifeboat through the turbulent and surging vast ocean to reach the ideal shore? If we can abandon worldly pursuits and devote ourselves to cultivation like the monks, nuns, priests, and sisters in the temple, it would be the best way. Although it may be difficult to ascend to heaven in one step, it is worthwhile. The problem is, can we do it? Let's drop all other obstacles. How many of us can surmount the huge mountain of the pleasure of sex? I have another question. Why should we surmount this huge mountain now that the greatest creator has equipped us with the pleasure of sex to enjoy? Isn't the feeling of orgasm, entering paradise, feeling celestial, release and proliferation of love, the standstill of time and space, the feeling of being blended into the universe, and the expectation to give up all worldly desire and stay forever at that time point, the highest realm of life we pursue? Our ultimate goal is to become angels, super celestial beings, and Buddhas. It would be too difficult for ordinary people to jump from the starting point to the end point, unless they are born with the wisdom of an angel, like my granny, who was a vegetarian by birth, not due to personal preference, but due to disgust at the smell of fish and meat. Entering graduate school directly from primary school is a process of transcending comparable to the thorough remolding of oneself and reaching the peak of perfection. It is just too difficult. Are there any smoother paths to the final success of becoming a super celestial being or Buddha? Yes, there are. Let's first arrive at the 1,000-year world because the enjoyment of the pleasure of sex will only affect our success of becoming a super celestial being or Buddha and will not prevent us from approaching the 1,000-year world. Please refer to the 1,000-year world of the 36-dimensional spaces. Although it is still hundreds of thousands of miles away from the kingdom of the super celestial being and Buddhas, the 1,000-year world is, after all, a world with sublimated human nature. We can first arrive at the 1,000-year world before reaching the 10,000-year world and finally make it to the world of super celestial beings and Buddhas, the Elysium world. This is comparable to a primary school pupil who pursues their education in the order of primary school, middle school, university, and finally the graduate school. Let's return to our topic. The pleasure of sex is the arrangement of the greatest creator and the favor he has granted us. The greatest creator will not punish us as long as we are grateful to him and remember his grace when enjoying the pleasure of sex. I have seen the greatest creator through the pleasure of sex. Have you? 22. 上帝的杰作，自然之美. 22. The masterpiece of the greatest creator, the beauty of nature. While learning about Introduction to Literature, our teacher told us, we are surrounded by beauty. The reason we have failed to discover beauty is that we lack the eyes to perceive it. In 1986, I went to the Mandarin Duck Reservoir in Jiantao County with my classmates from Zhochuan Education College. We got off the bus on the road from Zhochuan City to Jiantao County. Guess what my first impression was? I felt the beauty of relaxation and happiness for becoming a part of Mother Nature because, as soon as we got off the bus, we saw the vast expanse of the endless Gobi Desert. It seemed that we city dwellers had entered another world of wildness, wonder, remoteness, and vastness. All of us cried out with one voice, "Wow, beautiful." How can we say that the Gobi Desert is not beautiful? When I climbed the Great Wall at Badaling during my study at Beijing Foreign Trade University, I saw the meandering Great Wall fly like a gigantic dragon on the top of the undulating mountains. I felt a beauty of valiance, unrestrained freedom, and flying. During my study at Zhangjiago Geology Technical School, I used to go climbing with my classmates. Standing on the mountaintop and overlooking the wilderness with curling smoke beyond the Great Wall, I felt a beauty of serenity, leisureliness, composure, and ease induced by the picturesque natural scenery. While studying in Lanzhou Education College, I would sit by the Yellow River whenever I had the opportunity. Since I grew up by the Yellow River, I have a special love for it. Watching the surging and rolling river flow in its meandering course, I felt that my thinking had been carried to a remote place, and I was filled with the aesthetic feeling of surging emotions and endless yearnings. In the small islands of Luanda, the capital of Angola, in the Bella port of Mozambique, on the beach of Dar es Salaam, the capital of Tanzania, in the end of the earth of China's Hainan Island, in the Cape of Good Hope of South Africa's Cape Town. Everywhere the azure sky and sea elicits in me an aesthetic sense of mystery, fantasy, eternity, and infinity. There is the world-famous Victoria Waterfall on the Zambezi River between Zambia and Zimbabwe. I used to drive a 6-ton truck of the Chinese Jefong brand to fetch water from there. Each time I approached it, I was overwhelmed by its tumbling heroism. Its vigorous momentum, mountain-shaking power, thunderous rumbling, dragons soaring, and the numerous rainbows among the waterfall created a dreamlike aesthetic feeling of dauntlessness and unrestraint. Harare is a garden-esque city, and Zimbabwe is a green country. Here, birds sing and flowers bloom all year round. Everywhere, you can see lush and green foliage. For years, I wandered among the green mountains and rivers. Under the blue sky and white clouds, the trees, flowers, and grass are extremely beautiful. I have not been to a prairie, but a dance I learned in middle school has always been lingering in my mind. The dance sings praise of the prairie of Hulunbuir in Inner Mongolia, the galloping courser, the herds of sheep, the drifting white clouds in the blue sky, and clusters of small flowers dotting the endless stretch of green land. In my imagination, the prairie is refreshing and intoxicating, and I long for it. The Gobi Desert, mountains, fields, rivers, oceans, creeks, and waterfalls, the blue sky and white clouds, flowers, grass, and trees. All are beautiful. The prairie, even in imagination, is also very beautiful. The starlight stretching across the sky, the morning and evening glows, the hovering eagles, the dancing butterflies, the grapes on the vines, the mouth-watering melons and fruits, the exquisite and translucent gemstones, the sparkling and shining dewdrops, the croaking of frogs, the chirping of insects, the singing of birds, the neighing of horses, and even the mirage. Nature displays strange and stunning beauty everywhere. Nature is beautiful, and man is even more beautiful. I have not seen the 4 ancient beauties in China, nor have I studied any of them carefully. However, I have appreciated numerous Western beauties from the internet, especially nude ones. I have been deeply influenced by Buddhism, Christianity, and Confucianism, but the power of beauty is so great that it can cause the complete collapse of my moral defense line. The temptation of beauty is so strong that it can intoxicate and thrill people. Sometimes I imagine them to be the painted skins, hua pai, in Strange Stories from a Chinese Studio, which will suck my marrow and blood, pull out my tendons, and skin me alive. I also know that a beauty of 18 is soft and tender. Her charm is as sharp as a sword that can cut through an ordinary man. Although he may look the same, unknowingly his marrow is sucked clean and dry. However, my natural inclination for beauty is so strong that I wish to be consumed by it. Should we turn a deaf ear and a blind eye to beauty? If beauty can cause our downfall, so can the beauty of nature. Aren't they the same? The earnest and tireless teachings of Jesus and Sakyamuni keep ringing in my ears. On the other hand, beauty bewitches me with its irresistible force. I have been plunged into deep misery and desperation. Why is this? I ponder, I repent, I hate myself, and I pity myself. What should I do? I cannot help but look for the greatest creator, pleading for a definitive answer. Who has bestowed beauty upon everything? If a person has no other purpose than mere survival, they will need nothing more than a kennel and a basin of pig feed. Why should everything be given a beautiful appearance? Finally, I have found the answer. The beauty of everything has been created by the greatest creator, who intended for us to enjoy the beauty of life. Now that the revered greatest creator of the universe has offered us beauty, why should we act against the will of the greatest creator and view beauty as a dreadful disaster? Is Jesus wrong? Is Buddha Sakyamuni wrong? No, not at all. Honey is sweet, but if we cannot extricate ourselves from it, we may put our lives and wonderful future at stake, which is quite unworthy. We must heed the painstaking advice of God and Buddha. However, now that all beauty has been created by the greatest creator, we are entitled to enjoy it. All beauty should be shared and not privatized. Everyone is greedy and exclusive by nature. When one cannot possess certain beauty, they will try every means to decry it and prevent others from enjoying it. I praise all of you beautiful men and women, and through you, I praise the greatest creator. Internet beauties, the road to paradise and Elysium world has been closed to you. Let me lead you to the thousand-year world. You have shown your beauty to the world and the public. You are not monsters, nor are you sprites. But remember, your beauty is given by the greatest creator. You should always remember the favor of the greatest creator and feel indebted to and love him. However, it will be a different story if you use your beauty for evil. Beauty is the masterpiece of the greatest creator, and the existence of beauty is the best evidence of the existence of the greatest creator. 23. 明亮的眼睛，通向美的窗户。23. The bright eyes, windows to beauty. Of the six senses, vision, hearing, smell, taste, touch, and spiritual sense, felt by the six sense organs, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Vision accounts for more than 80% of our understanding of the material world. Although more than 80% of the knowledge of the non-material world comes from spiritual sense, vision is the foundation for spiritual sense. Thus, eyes are called the windows of the soul. Vision relies mainly on eyes. Although purely a material physiological structure, eyes can project the forms and movements of the boundless universe onto our brains, which enables us to survive effectively in the complicated nature. Without eyes, a person cannot live effectively, and without eyes, humankind cannot survive effectively. So, how did eyes come about? Is it possible that the miraculous and intricate eyes have evolved from a single-celled organism and developed into the fully functional and perceptive eyes of humankind? Human eyes have two functions. One is the function of vision, and the other is the function of aesthetics. The formation of vision involves an entire system of highly efficient image analysis structures. Strictly speaking, the objects we see are not the same objects because a period of time has passed in the process from the perception of an object to the imaging of the object on the retina to the conceptualization of the object after being reflected to the brain by the nervous system. Although it lasts only several 10,000ths of a microsecond, theoretically, the image in the brain is already not the image of the real object. For example, a flower we see may have withered after some time, but the flower in the brain is still the one originally reflected. For another example, when a relative of ours has passed away and is no longer alive, our brains still retain the lovely voice and happy countenance of the deceased. How does vision happen? Vision is a reaction to the stimulation of light energy of the eyes. An object will reflect the light from the sun or other light source. Via pupils and lens, the reflected light will fall on the retina for imaging to take place. Then, stimulated by light energy, the nerve cells on the retina will convert the light signal into a bioelectrical signal, which will deliver the vision information to the nerve center via optic nerves and finally to the brain. The brain's mechanism for analysis, judgment, and identification will form the concepts of the object's size, shape, and color and then pass on these concepts to the related parts of the body, ordering them to maintain high vigilance and be ready to respond to emergencies. For the smooth running of such a complicated program, a man of supreme wisdom is needed to conduct the perfect design of the eyes, just like the design of cameras by scientists. We can know that the eyes are designed by the greatest creator through the following passages. What is visible to the eyes is only the visible light with wavelengths ranging between 400 and 760 nanometers. Beyond this visual range, the world is completely different. The blue sky is no longer blue. Our eyes would be overwhelmed by the variegated and weirdly colorful scenes created by cosmic rays such as infrared, ultraviolet, gamma rays, beta rays, X-rays, electromagnetic waves, and particle flux. In less than 10 minutes, our nervous system would become chaotic and we would go insane. Moreover, we might occasionally perceive spirits, immortals, goblins, devils, monsters, paradise and hell, or even the thought waves in other people's minds. Then we would not be able to behave like rational beings and enjoy the beauty of life in a muddle-headed and unrestrained manner. Enable the eyes to distinguish between different colors. Within the cone-shaped photosensitive cells of the human eye's retina, there are three different photopigments that can absorb blue light with a wavelength of 445 nanometers, green light with a wavelength of 535 nanometers, and red light with a wavelength of 570 nanometers. The combination of these three lights in varying proportions has created a vast array of colors. Our eyes have the ability to distinguish these subtle color differences. If not, we would all be colorblind, and how could we fully enjoy the infinite beauty of nature? Give the eyes a broad field of vision. Our eyeballs are only 24 millimeters from front to back, 23 millimeters from top to bottom, and 23.5 millimeters horizontally. The pupil of the eye is only 2.5 to 4 millimeters in diameter, but with the ability to scan widely, we can see views within a range of dozens of kilometers. If our eyes do not have this function, and we could only see an area the size of our eyes, our field of vision would be extremely limited, like looking through a bamboo tube at something a few meters away. Our field of vision would be very narrow, and we wouldn't be able to see a wolf approaching or a snake crawling up to our feet. This would be very troublesome, wouldn't it? Provide the eyes with stereoscopic vision. People often say, we can see clearly at a glance, but can one see clearly with only one eye? Try closing one eye and see if you can thread a needle or pour strong sulfuric acid accurately into a small test tube in a chemistry lab. Therefore, having two eyes is important. Enable the eyes to blink. The eyes blink every 2 to 8 seconds. Why do we blink? If our eyes remain open all the time, they will become dry, astringent, and may attract dust and bacteria. If this continues for an extended period, we may lose our eyesight. By blinking, tears are evenly distributed in the eyes to moisten the cornea and conjunctiva, preventing dryness and astringency, maintaining the luster of the cornea, and cleaning the conjunctival sac of dust and bacteria. See how considerate the greatest creator is. Provide the eyes with a mechanism for self-protection. The eye is a complex, sensitive, and delicate organ that cannot be protected by relying on human self-awareness. Therefore, the greatest creator has designed eyebrows, eyelashes, eyelids, and tears for protection. Eyebrows, growing on the protruding supraorbital ridges, ward off dust and sweat from above like an umbrella, preventing them from entering the eyes. Eyelashes resemble bamboo curtains or two platoons of embattled sentinels, always ready to keep away and block the unannounced invasion of enemies like dust and microorganisms. Eyelids act as loyal soldiers guarding the frontier line of the eyes. Whenever foreign matter or strong light attacks, the eyelids close up immediately and protect the eyes within them from harm. This prevents foreign matter from damaging the eyeballs and strong light from hurting the optic nerves. In case foreign matter or bacteria invades the eyes, tears from the lacrimal gland flush away the foreign matter. Lysozyme and immunoglobulin in tears inhibit bacterial growth and kill bacteria by decomposing the sucrose mortierolate in the cell wall. This protection mechanism is perfect. Is it a result of evolution? Our eyes have possessed these functions since humans appeared on Earth. They have not evolved or regressed, nor have they gone through gradual perfection and evolution. In addition to their visual function, eyes also serve an aesthetic purpose. Expressions such as bright eyes, speaking eyes, amorous eyes, flirting eyes, and so on provide us with aesthetic enjoyment. I have brainstormed hundreds of schemes to adjust the size and position of the eyes to find a better design. For example, placing the eyes at the top of the head, at the back of the head, or on the buttocks, palms, or beneath the mouth. I also considered exchanging the positions of the eyes and ears or replacing human eyes with those of horses, rats, or frogs. However, only the current size and position of the eyes are just right, and any changes will lead to ugliness. Try it and see. Through our eyes, we can see the greatest creator and witness the exquisite and profound wisdom of the greatest creator. Beauty is the masterpiece of the greatest creator, and the existence of beauty is the best evidence of the existence of the greatest creator. 24. 的奇妙的生物遥感、传感和感应。 24. The marvelous biological remote sensing, telesthesia, and telepathy. Let's first look at the following cases. Case 1. Huiyin reported in 4 Flowers and 4 Dragons, the story of 2 quadruplets. If one of the quadruplets catches a cold, The other three will surely have a fever. Three brothers yawned in step with each other, with three little mouths opening simultaneously. They uttered, "Ah," sonorously, as if proclaiming their manliness. Case 2. There is a report called The Unexpected Reunion of Kindred, the details of which I cannot remember very well. It relates the reunion of a mother and daughter after a separation of more than 4 decades. Under a strange combination of circumstances, the daughter was adopted by other people. So she took the foster mother for her birth mother, and indeed, she did not know that she had a natural mother who was now old and lived alone, knowing nothing about her only child, who had been separated from her since very young. A curious coincidence brought the daughter into an out-of-the-way alley, where she coincidentally met with an old lady. Because she had accidentally helped the old lady, she was invited by the old lady into her humble hut, where she accidentally saw a picture on the wall of the old lady when she was young. She was astonished because her foster mother had given her a photo, which had been placed at the bottom of a box for decades. The photo on the wall was the same as the one she had placed at the bottom of a box. After talking with the old lady, she came to know that the old lady in front of her was none other than her own mother. The mother and the daughter felt both misery and happiness. Thanks to the mercy of heaven, the old mother had eventually found her daughter that she missed every day. Case 3. Dead Body Returns Home reported that when the famous American actor Charles Cleveland died in 1899, he was buried in Galveston, Texas. The next year, a hurricane flooded the cemetery. The family of the deceased searched everywhere, but with no result. However, 28 years later, in September 1927, this magical coffin mysteriously reappeared. It drifted for 3,000 kilometers and arrived at the homeland of Cleveland, Prince Edward Island. Case 4. According to the omens of mice house moving, after World War II, Mr. and Mrs. Raymond Macy, who were in the film industry in New York, rented an apartment at number 80 Street of East Borough. One day, Mrs. Macy spotted from the window on the second floor that many mice were pouring out in full force from the house opposite, running out as fast as they could. Shortly after, the old lady living in the opposite house died of suicide. After the death of the old lady, the mice returned in troops to the house. Sometime later, a blonde dancing, fashionably dressed girl moved in, who was often accompanied by a young man. One day the flock of mice once again fled from the house. A few days later, this young man died of a heart attack. After the death of the young man, the dancing girl moved out. Strange enough, the mice once again returned to their old home. A short time later, a young industrialist took residence in the house. After a period of peace, those mice left the house for another time. Mrs. Macy has a hunch that something unexpected might happen again. True enough, this young industrialist died in a plane crash. It is said that the house was built by a famous lawyer who suffered from lunacy shortly after the building was completed and eventually killed himself by jumping into the Hudson River. Case 5. According to the report of the miraculous biological telesthesia, as early as the last century, Professor Gregory of Edinburgh University had introduced an experiment of Barua. In the experiment, Barua divided the 50 snails into 25 pairs. Each pair was separated from the other pairs. After some time, the same letter was written on the shells of each pair of snails, and one of the pair was brought to America, the other still remained in Paris. Later, at a given time, the snail staying in Paris was stimulated with electric current. At the same time, the one brought to America also exhibited the same electric stimulation reactions. Alright, let's just take the above examples to explore what remote sensing, and perception are all about. Remote sensing. First, I'd like to make it clear that the remote sensing I am talking about is purely biological remote sensing, which is different from the electromagnetic wave remote sensing, sonar remote sensing, and geophysical field remote sensing applied in aviation, spaceflight, navigation, meteorology, mapping, global positioning, resources survey, environmental protection, disaster prevention, hydrology, and geology, and archaeology. In the mythological novel Fengshen Bang, there are two extraordinary individuals named Qinli Yin, Thousand-Mile Eye, and Shunfeng Air, Wind-Piercing Ear. Their abilities allow them to perceive everything happening in Jiangxia's military camp from a distant location. The mice's behavior in Case 4 is an example of animal remote sensing. The special ability of remote clairvoyance, frequently mentioned in the science of Qigong, is also a kind of remote sensing. Then, what is remote sensing? Remote sensing is a biological ability to perceive the condition of a distant person, object, or scenery by receiving the thought waves or electromagnetic waves emitted by them through directional thinking. Remote sensing is not a mysterious phenomenon, but rather a resonant frequency. Just like a television channel that receives electromagnetic signals of live broadcasting transmitted by a TV station and informs us of the happenings in a different place, or like a radio that picks up the frequency of a certain radio station and broadcasts the clear voice of the announcer. Remote sensing is a natural phenomenon in the universe, but its occurrence is very unusual. Strictly speaking, the scenes described in science fiction are not sheer fabrications, but a reality that has transcended time and space. Some people can accurately predict the future because they have actually mastered the technology of remote sensing. For example, the French Dr. Nostradamus, the eccentric Dorothy, Sakyamuni, and so on. The death of Russian Tsar Ivan at the end of the 16th century had been accurately predicted by 60 Russian prophets 12 days prior to his death. It is said that some people had given up the journey on Titanic for remote sensing its forthcoming disaster. There are a lot of prophecies in the Bible, the Quran, and the Sutra. Actually, these prophecies are a kind of remote sensing. My description of the 36-dimensional space is also the result of remote sensing. Explanations regarding the origin of the universe, the origin of humanity, and the origin of life are merely perceptions beyond time and space based on spiritual intuition. They do not rely on my meager knowledge or logical reasoning. From a scientific perspective, my arguments and evidence may be insufficient, but I believe that humanity will eventually know that what I am saying is correct. The number of people with the ability of remote sensing cannot be too many, just like there can be only several queen bees in a swarm of bees. The world will fall into chaos if everyone is capable of remote sensing. So I shall drop the topic here. If you are capable of remote sensing, it is your good luck. Sensation. Sensation is a physiological phenomenon, and it refers to a kind of physiological transmission of perception that goes unnoticed. The most unique example is the arrival of milk after childbirth. Taking humans as an example, regardless of how full a woman's breasts are, and despite engaging in sexual activities countless times, even after being pregnant for 10 months, milk will not appear until the child is born. Only the physiological response triggered by the baby's need for milk after birth leads to the abundant production of milk. This is similar to the tear glands secreting tears. Tears are only produced when a foreign object enters the eye or when there is a significant emotional fluctuation. Cases 1, 2, and 5 are examples of biological sensation. Remote sensing can be acquired through conscious cultivation, while sensation is an unconscious physiological behavior, a physiological mechanism, and a natural program designed by the greatest creator. In this regard, we don't need to pay excessive attention. Telepathy. Telepathy is a universal phenomenon in the universe. Everything has telepathy. Strictly speaking, all activities of life forms are the result of telepathy. More accurately, all the phenomena we see are the result of telepathy. The macrocosmic universe is the result of telepathy, and the microcosmic universe is also the result of telepathy. Both organic and inorganic substances are capable of telepathy. Humans, animals, plants, and insects have telepathy. Mountains, rocks, rivers, and weather are all capable of telepathy. The effective evidence for the telepathy of microscopic matter can be found in the fact that the famous Buddhist master Jinkong cited on many occasions the Japanese scientist's research on the crystal of water molecules when expounding on Mahayana's Sutra of Infinite Life. He said that when we say thanks and love to water, the arrangement of water molecules will be a very beautiful crystal, and that when we are hostile and indifferent to it, the arrangement of water molecules will be a chaotic assemblage. Hence, Master Jinkong told us that since the human body is 70% water, as long as we show more care for water in our body, then the water molecules in our body will act effectively, and we will increase our health. We may be free from illness all our life. He went further to enlighten us that since 70% of the earth is covered by water, as long as we don't pollute the rivers, lakes, and oceans, the earth will not be inflicted with floods, inundations, droughts, and hailstones. Like the gravitation between everything, The telepathy between everything exists and occurs everywhere and at any time. The most obvious examples are electromagnetic induction, sound wave induction, photoelectric induction, and so on. Now there are automatic doors in cities around the globe. The door closes when a person leaves and opens when a person approaches. Some street lamps will be automatically turned on when it becomes dark and will be automatically turned off when dawn breaks. Some anti-theft devices will automatically set off alarms when a person enters a security zone. Telepathy between life forms happens at every moment. In case 1, the quadruplets will all have a fever as long as one of them catches a cold. When one yawns, the others will open their mouths simultaneously. The same phenomenon occurs with twins and multi-births. Different degrees of telepathy occur at any moment between mother and daughter, father and son, lovers and enemies. The abnormal behaviors of animals before earthquakes, the pain in joints suffered by arthritis patients before heavy rain, the frantic movements of insects before storms, the suicidal behavior of plants like bamboo prior to a disaster, and the sudden fidgets and vexations experienced by people occasionally are all results of telepathy. 2 days ago, November 30th, 2003, I ran into a former colleague of mine. He had rented a luxury villa with a courtyard where 4 rows of grapevines, each 30 meters long, grew. He told me that the grapevines had not produced grapes for many years, but after he began to live in the villa, he watered the grapevines every 3 days, applied fertilizers, hoed up weeds, and dug up the soil. Now the grapevines are heavily laden with grapes, and he can earn a handsome sum of money from them alone. He said excitedly, "Plants will repay when they get enough care and protection from humans." This is also a kind of telepathy. In front of the window of the master bedroom in my yard, there is a tree whose name is unknown to me. It blooms small white and purple flowers, which emit a strong fragrance when the tree is in full bloom. One year, when I stood in front of the flowers, I muttered to myself, "These flowers are so beautiful and fragrant. How wonderful it would be if the tree is in bloom every day. It would be very good if the tree can flower many more times every year." 3 months later, the tree was in bloom once again. I asked the gardener, Gift, who had worked in this compound for nearly 10 years, whether this tree would flower twice every year. He replied, "No, it flowers only once every year, and I don't know why it has flowered twice this year." Suddenly, I realized that it was my wish that had prompted it to flower one more time. I felt very guilty. This is a flower tree with great spiritual nature. To satisfy my private needs, it has overstretched itself against the law of nature. It must have tried hard. The second time, the flowers had such a faint fragrance that one could hardly smell it. This is the result of overspending. I apologized in my mind, flower tree, I am deeply indebted to you for your kindness. I understand you now. Please don't overdo yourself again in the future. Meanwhile, Life Genuine will try its best to protect you and all the flowers, grass, and trees. You are silently dedicated to mankind, flowering to beautify the environment, bearing fruits for people to savor, afforesting to conserve water and soil, exhaling oxygen, and inhaling carbon dioxide to purify the environment, and photosynthesizing to create nourishment carbohydrates for humans and animals. Without you, there would be no insects, animals, and humans. You are the foundation on which life depends. Life Genuine will make it its tenet to protect the lives of all living things. We humans should no longer be arrogant, conceited, and ungrateful. There is telepathy between plants and humans, as well as telepathy between humans and gods. I have a friend whose father was nearly 80 years old. He was kind-hearted, amicable, and genial, and very healthy in Zimbabwe. However, there was a period when he was vexed and troubled, insisting on returning home to his homeland in China. My friend had no choice but to send him back. Soon after, the old man passed away in his sleep. Why did the old man feel anxious and eager to return home when he was enjoying a very good life in Zimbabwe? This is the beckoning of the gods. Although he did not know it, the old man had experienced telepathy physiologically. Moreover, telepathy also occurs in many of our daily recreational activities. Last month, November 2003, my wife and I played poker games with some friends for 6 hours. The cards in our hands were very bad from beginning to end. Our friends had climbed over several mountains while my wife and I were still fixed at the starting point. Finally, I realized it was because my wife and I felt upset and distracted several days before. When one's mind is disturbed, the cards will also be a mess. Only if one has a calm mind will they get very good and orderly cards. You can try it if you're interested. Recently, another case of telepathy happened to me. I have the habit of reading reader. Once I read several articles by the Taiwanese writer Lin Qingxian and discovered that Mr. Lin has a very high spiritual nature. As far as I can tell, however ignorant I may be, Mr. Lin is one of the people with the highest spiritual nature in the Chinese nation. I consider it great luck and happiness to read more of his books. However, I am abroad and have very little chance to buy his books. I never expected that recently a girl of my children's generation came from China and brought me 2 books written by Mr. Lin, Search the Homeland of Soul. Why did she buy books instead of anything else for me? Why did she buy Lin Qingxuan's book instead of other books? It turned out that this was a result of my telepathy. Seth said, physiological symptoms are communications from the inner self, indications that we are making mental errors of one kind or another. In other words, physical symptoms are a response of the body to psychological and spiritual ailments. All the wars, conflicts, natural disasters, and diseases in human history are the result of the mutual influence between gods, humans, animals, and plants. The Great Flood in the time of Noah was also a consequence of the induction caused by human conceit and arrogance. Remote sensing, sensation, and telepathy are all embodiments of Tao, as described by Lao Tzu in Tao Te Ching. Tao is an embodiment of the spirit of the greatest creator. Ultimately, remote sensing, sensation, and telepathy are programs designed by the greatest creator to maintain the balance of nature. We can hence feel the unfathomable profundity of the greatest creator's wisdom. 25. 腐化,新生命的养料. 25. Decomposition, the nourishment for new life. Decomposition is a natural phenomenon in the natural world. It is a transformation of decay and putrefaction. Decay and putrefaction are undesirable, but decomposition is a form of energy conversion and a transcendent aspect of life. You can observe a fallen apple from the tree. It rots at the beginning, but after a period of time, only an empty shell is left. Then, after some time, even the empty shell vanishes. Where has the entire apple gone? It has undergone the process of decomposition. All things in the material world will go through decomposition, without which there would be no such material world. Just imagine, how can we have today's environment and civilization if the carcasses of animals remain intact for thousands of years, if the leaves fallen from the trees remain as fresh as ever, if the piled garbage does not rot, if the slave society and feudal system do not corrupt, and if despotism is always maintained, if the original religion does not corrupt, and if the ancient civilizations last for eternity? The rotten carcasses of animals and the decayed plants will be decomposed by microorganisms in soil or water and converted into nutrients, which can be absorbed and utilized by other plants. The ancient religion and civilization were decomposed by the development of the times and converted into knowledge and wisdom, which can be absorbed and utilized by the present religion and civilization. How perfect the design is! The waste is changed into valuable materials, and the corrupted is turned into wonders. Who is capable of such considerate and flawless thinking? The greatest creator. 26. 生死令凡俗人迷惑的现象. 26. Life and death, a phenomenon puzzling mortals and laity. This earth witnesses the birth and death of a huge number of animals and plants every day and every moment. Life and death is a universal phenomenon in nature. Everyone has embarked on the journey towards death since the moment of their birth. The happiness of life and the sadness of death are the basic emotions of mortals and laity. When a family welcomes the birth of a child, they are filled with joy, and when they lose a loved one, they experience profound sadness and grief. Apart from extraordinary beings like Jesus and Sakyamuni Buddha, who are transcendent, wise, and free from worldly concerns, few people can escape this cycle of confusion and grasp the true meaning of life and death. The tragedy of life lies in ignorance and the inability to transcend the cycle of life and death. For thousands of years, people have been seeking the way to immortality. Modern medicine and science are also probing into the secrets of longevity. I wonder why people are so happy about life but so grieved at death. Seeking life entails endless troubles, and seeking death brings infinite benefits. What would the world look like if none of the plants and animals on the earth died? And if our great-great-great-grandparents survived until today and each family had a thriving population? Some will think it would be best if they all die and we all survive. Well, suppose they all die and we all survive. See if we are better off. It would be okay as long as we can distinguish who they are and who we are. We must know at the same time that everyone wishes the same as you and me. Then in the end, who is to die and who is to survive? Is it so good to live and so bad to be dead? Take a look at human history, pay a visit to your neighbors, and ponder over the question of what good there is to live and what harm there is to die. Forget about time immemorial. Let's talk about the time from Sakyamuni Buddha to the present. How many people have lived a good life, and how many have suffered a bad death? Taking Chinese society as an example, antenatal training has been provided even before a baby is born. Abandoning the music of nature, the greatest creator, God, and Buddha, people spare no efforts to inoculate the fetus with the imperfect music of mankind. Immediately after birth, adults try every means to provide the little babies with toys and cartoons instead of having them get in touch with flowers, birds, insects, and fish in nature. Before the age of schooling, the children have begun their preschool education, learning piano, painting, kung fu, and dancing. They have no opportunity to bring their own instinct into play, nor have fun in nature. When the children have just begun to know about the world around them, they will be burdened with heavy and formless pressures. In addition to the heavy school bags and the endless homework, adults spare no efforts to add extra education for them. Moreover, endlessly lecturing began to pour onto children. You must be someone, you have to get full marks in exams, otherwise you'll be lagging behind others. Child, I am doing all this only for your good. You must work hard and strive to become an excellent student. You must enter top-tier middle school and then qualify yourself for study at a prestigious university. Otherwise, you will have no foothold in this society. Why are you so fond of playing, my kid? Look at Xiao Ming. She is so diligent and so promising. You must learn from her. These and many more lectures have left children at a loss. The 100-meter dash begins with middle school. Students are preoccupied with study and examinations day and night. Teachers and parents are carefully supervising and urging, and society is imprudently promoting the atmosphere of elites. As a result, the splendor of human nature is inundated in the endless darkness. Is it supposed to be easy after entering university? No, it's not. Comparing oneself to others in terms of food, clothing, housing, and transportation among classmates is a small matter. What's more serious is the forced indoctrination in the field of ideology and the blind and unlimited pursuit of knowledge. University is supposed to be a place to cultivate people with noble moral character, but the majority of universities are not cultivating living, breathing human beings, but rather robots who have lost themselves. We must bring honor to our ancestors, we must win glory for the motherland, and we must win credits for our nation. Colleges have been fostering narrow-minded notions. What's worse, some colleges and organizations are teaching students how to make their first fortune, how to rise in the world, and how to attract handsome men and beautiful women to themselves. This is a worrisome era. The real distress begins with graduation from universities. There are a bewildering number of roads ahead. Which one shall I take? The unbridgeable gap between dreams and reality, the intangible conflicts between ethics and interest, the marriage, the houses, the cars, and the expected splendid success. All these have put university students at loose ends, which has fragmented the entirety of their spiritual nature into an unbearable scene. If university graduates are like this, then those with no university education must have experienced even greater conflicts and misery in mind. Having married and established a family doesn't necessarily mean entering a safe harbor. Heart-wrenching matters often occur. Supporting elderly parents and raising children are common responsibilities, which people can endure. What they may find intolerable are the conflicts and battles between spouses. Additionally, the occurrences of birth, aging, sickness, death, separation from loved ones, resentment, aversion, encountering situations we wish to avoid, and impermanent events can stir up a once beautiful life into chaos. We see people on the streets, each of them looking vigorous and elegant. But once we get to know their inner world, we will find every one of them emaciated and fatigued. Many people in my neighborhood are businessmen. They all have nice houses, servants, and good cars. Then they should be happy and satisfied, right? The answer is no. When I chatted with them one day, one of them said, "Actually, if I have a million yuan RMB, I will be doing well in China." Another person, as if he has heard the talking of an alien, taunted, "A million? What can you do about it? It is barely enough to buy and decorate an apartment." Another said to me, "I heard you are writing a book, right? You are a little old-fashioned. Don't you know that in today's time you are everything if you have money and you are nothing if you don't? Make haste to earn money." Yet another person, a woman, preached, "Nowadays money is God. How much is conscience worth?" I was overwhelmed, and I shuddered. No wonder they are constantly striving, always chasing after every penny and valuing money over everything else. I see the world as ruled by goblins, devils, and monsters. Am I wrong? Or am I the real devil? Or do I simply not fit in with this world at all? I feel that living is suffering, and human life is rightly a sea of suffering. The sea of suffering is boundless, but turning back is the shore. Turning back? What does turning back mean? Turning back means death. Why die? For living is worse than death. How to die? Nirvana. How can nirvana be achieved? Through self-improvement and self-refinement. How does one self-improve and self-refine? By raising consciousness and increasing wisdom. What is wisdom? Wisdom is the supreme and profound understanding of life and death. How can one acquire supreme and profound wisdom? By understanding what life and death are. Then what is life and what is death? That one is inexplicably brought into the world as a result of karma is called birth and life. That one rushes about blindly and departs the world unjustifiably is called death. Birth is accidental. Is death inevitable? Both birth and death are inevitable. Since both death and birth are inevitable, and individuals have no choice and cannot resist, then why do we have to understand life and death? By understanding life and death, one can cast off life and death. How can one cast off life and death? By reaching the realm of no birth, no death. What is the realm of no birth, no death? Elysium world is the realm of no birth, no death. What is Elysium world? Elysium world is one of the 36-dimensional spaces, namely the world described by Jesus and Sakyamuni. Is there really such a world? Or is it only a tale? Yes, there is. I am telling the truth. Then please demonstrate it to me. I cannot, because it is another time-space, which is invisible to the naked eye. The mirages that occur occasionally are part of Elysium world. Then there is no way to see it? Yes, there is. What way? Through spiritual sense. What is spiritual sense? A person has 6 sense organs: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, which are respectively responsible for the 6 senses: vision, hearing, smell, taste, touch, and spiritual sense. Spiritual sense is the perception in everyone's consciousness and a spiritual nature apperception. Why does my spiritual sense not have such capability? Because your spiritual sense is too dull. Why is my spiritual sense dull? Because it has been polluted. What has polluted my spiritual sense? Your spiritual sense has been polluted by images in nature, the values of human society, and your prejudices. Then how can I restore my spiritual sense? By awakening to the truth. What is awakening to the truth? Awakening to the truth means getting to the bottom of a phenomenon. What is a phenomenon? A phenomenon can be anything that we see, hear, smell, taste, or touch. According to you, there are too many phenomena. Yes, Buddhism talks about 84,000 Dharmapariyas, but actually, Dharmapariyas are unlimited. What is Dharmapariya? Dharmapariya is a means to grasp a phenomenon and find out the ultimate essence of its essence. What is essence? The essence is something concealed that causes the occurrence of a particular phenomenon. Then what is the ultimate essence of essence? The substrate causing the essence is the ultimate essence. That is to say, the greatest creator is the ultimate essence? Yes. How do we get to know the greatest creator? This book of mine can enlighten you on the understanding of the greatest creator. Oh, I see. What do you see? The birth of man is like falling into the sea of suffering, and so it is something lamentable. The death of man, however, is like being severed from the sea of suffering, and so it is something delightful. Yes, but not entirely. Why? Because death is not the final resting place. Why is death not the final resting place? Didn't you say that man will enter the Elysium world after death? Death is only a surface phenomenon. Behind death is the transmigration of life. Some people will return to the human world after death, some will become animals after death, some will enter the 1,000-year world, and some will go to the 10,000-year world. Only a very limited number of people will go to the Elysium world after death. So how can we feel happy if some people are even worse and are more miserable than in the human world after death? You're preaching about past lives, afterlives, and reincarnation is too inscrutable. How can we believe in something that cannot be proved by science? Science is materialism. Science cannot prove what is beyond the material world. But the universe is composed of material and non-material. Science can only prove half of the universe, not the other half. Take my consciousness, for example. How big is it? What color is it? How heavy is it? What shape does it have? Science cannot provide answers to these and many other questions. Therefore, you cannot entirely negate what cannot be proven by science. Then can you prove that man has past lives and afterlives? Yes. One is the records about past lives in history, which can be found in the literature of many nationalities. Another is the record of facts by the International Near-Death Research Institute. The third is the descriptions by the sages and saints like Jesus and Sakyamuni. These are only legends, hearsays, or religious doctrines, and thus are not convincing. Can you come up with something new? Yes, homosexuality is an example. The rule for the biological world is that same sexes repel each other, and opposite sexes attract each other. So why is there homosexuality? And why can homosexual love be so dear as to risk one's life? This involves the gender of one's past life. If a woman has a past life as a man, the inertia of biology will continue to play its role and will incline her to instinctively like a woman instead of a man, although she has become a woman in this life. When she meets a woman with the same past life, they will easily connect and fall in love with each other. Similarly, if a man has his past life as a woman, then he will still be inclined towards men in this life. Homosexuality is not a morbidity, but a spontaneous instinct, which may fade away with the passage of time. Moreover, there is a saying, rivers and mountains may be changed, but it's hard to alter a man's nature. What is true nature, and why is it unchangeable? Nature refers to innate characteristics. When does nature come into being? Is it during primary school? When held in mother's arms? Since the time of the embryo in the mother's body? Since the time of existence in the womb? Or since the combination of sperm and ovum? If nature begins from the time mentioned above, then there is no question of hard to alter a man's nature. Therefore, it can be concluded that nature has been around for centuries and is deeply rooted, unlikely to change in a relatively short period. We can observe people around us or study some special individuals. By comparing their habits to those of certain animals, we can easily deduce that certain people possess the original nature of those animals. Thus, we can conclude that such people may have been those animals in their past life. For example, for thousands of years, philosophers and thinkers have pondered the question, who am I? But have failed to answer it. Who am I? Am I my family? No, because I am still myself even without my family. Am I my clothes? No, because I am still myself after I undress. Am I my teeth? No, because I am still myself even after losing all my teeth. Am I my hair? No, because I am still myself even if I become bald. Am I my eyes? No, because I am still myself even if I become blind. Am I my legs? No, because I am still myself even if I am amputated. Am I my heart? No, because I am still myself after organ transplantation. Am I my blood? No, because I am still myself even after a blood transfusion. If I am none of these, then who on earth am I? Well, I am Tathagata. What is Tathagata? Tathagata is the essential origin, the consciousness, soul, that already exists beyond the flesh and endures hardships in this world by residing in this home of my flesh. When this home of my flesh ceases to exist, I still exist. All I have to do is find another home. It's like crossing a river. I borrowed a boat, but I would give up the boat and go on shore after I crossed. Buddhism preaches that an enlightened heart is perceptive of nature, which is perceptive of Buddha. If we understand this principle, we are already Tathagata Buddha. We will go directly to the Elysium world after death and won't have to return to the human world to continue struggling. All right, regarding the phenomenon of life and death, let's discuss just these briefly. My purpose is not to stick to the facts, but to explain that the phenomenon of life and death, which is difficult to reverse, is determined by the greatest creator and has its own purpose and meaning. Without the greatest creator, there would be no life, let alone life and death.